Hey, it's Elizabeth Brown, the Kitchen Vixen. It's a Sunday. Sunday's the day I usually do chores and make soup or something that I'm going to eat throughout the week. So today I'm making SCrAP BRoTH, which is broth that you make from all your vegetable scraps, your chicken bones, your chicken carcasses, or whatever else you weren't able to consume but didn't want to throw away and contribute to landfills. I keep it in a freezer bag so that I can make this wonderful stock that I learned about in culinary school in 2005. I have a bunch of chicken carcasses, plus a chicken that I had bought, but a bunch of chickens that I made. And then I'm going to do something fun with the bones. Probably not today, but another day. I also have a bag of scraps of all kinds of vegetables from things I've made over probably a couple months' time. I'm going to turn my, let me see, let me get some butter. Hold on, jumping the gun. Okay, so just using scraps. And of course, I'll be making soup with the stock, or I could just drink the stock. But I'm going to take those vegetables that I used from the soup that I prepare and put those in the freezer. So we're just constantly recycling, getting ready for our next version of stock. And I'm going to turn my burner on. So I have instead of a Dutch oven, which is great, I have one of those as well. But I have something called a Doufeu. It's from Creuset. And it's one of the first things I bought when I moved to California. Basil, get out of there. Come on. Don't start with. At the Creuset outlet, which is no longer around. I'm so sad. But it was a great investment. So it goes from stovetop to oven. That's also what a Dutch oven does. It's just a bigger version of a Dutch oven. You can also roast in it, which I have not tried, but because it'll catch the drippings. So burner is on, let's say 3 o'clock-ish. I'm going to saute my vegetables or whatever's in here with some butter and olive oil and seasonings. This is just my version of it. I really honestly can't remember exactly how we did it in culinary school. I just remember we used to save our scraps and then make stock. I think we used to make stock right away, but we used to freeze some as well. So throw in a bunch of olive oil, throw in a bunch of butter, like maybe a tablespoon or 2 of butter. This is just all going in the stock, so it's going to be a huge amount. I'm not worried about the fat, but fat. The reason I recommend using fat in recipes, well, anyone would, is so fat, those are fat globules, and the flavor gets trapped in those globules and also gets trapped in your mouth. So like when you're eating things that have fat and flavor, then you enjoy the flavor more. It's encased in the fat globules, so it gives you the mouthfeel and the flavor all combined. Like it's an emulsion for the flavoring agents that we use. So in this case, I'm going to throw in some iodized sea salt. It's a good liberal amount. And you can always adjust the salt as you go, once the broth is made. But, hi Axel. Okay, throw in a bunch of pepper. So maybe like a good tablespoon pepper. And what else do I have here? I got some dried basil and oregano. I mean, I might as well just use it. I don't use it in a lot of recipes. I'm gonna throw that in there as well. And I got some thyme. Throw that in there. I don't use a lot of thyme in my recipes, so I might as well use it in my stock. So like maybe a good teaspoon or 2 of each. Oregano, where's basil? Basil is my cat. Basil is the herb. Basil's British. No, she's not. And maybe some dill, because I have that too. Let me see. Yeah, whatever. Just throw it in there. So, got a bunch of herbs and salt and pepper in here, sauteing. Now I'm going to add, let me see. I got a wooden spoon on hand, because a wooden spoon is good for deglazing the pan. I'm going to start with the chicken bones. Excuse me, Basil. Just to get in there. Okay, so I got a bunch of chicken bones in here. Throw those in. That's a lot. Okay, so there. Got like a couple versions of chicken bones in here. And I think I'm going to stick the lid on that for a minute and let that saute, and then I'll add some vegetables. So you can see how that big chunk is like melting down, and the smell is amazing actually, with the herbs and the chicken and the butter and the olive oil. It's so nice. So I wanted to brown this first before I add my vegetables, and I'm also going to brown those. See that? All that color. It smells so good. So we're not wasting anything. It's a lot of respect for that bird that gave its life to feed us. I'm going to repurpose the bones in a really fun way on a future project. So just using everything energy-wise, nutrition-wise, So we're going to deglaze in your pan. We're going to be adding water to deglaze it further, but just use your spoon to scrape up those brown bits and spread them around. And keep browning the bone and the skin that's left over. And the oven, I have my oven set at 250. I found that 250 for 8 hours or 300 for 6 hours. Maybe I'll put it to 300. So a lot of times I make stock at night and then let it cook in the oven while I sleep, but that's not really a safe recommendation. So I just happen to have a small apartment. I can smell if, you know, well, actually you can smell it cooking all night, so it kind of keeps you awake. So probably not the best advice, but I'm going to be home working today, so this is a good project to do when you're home on a Sunday or whatever day you're home. Make your stock with your leftover vegetable scraps and chicken. All right, so it's looking pretty good now. I think I can add my vegetables. I don't have to add the whole bag. I think I have another bag in there still, but let's see if we can fit in here. And then we're going to add some liquid before we put it in the oven. Bring it to a boil first. So I've got, let me see, I've got some onion pieces. And I even have a little bit of cabbage. I've got some more chicken bones in here. I have some celery. And I'm just going to throw it in there. Lots of skins. So, you know, the skin is not just the, like the hardcore protective element of the vegetable. It's also full of antioxidants, because once anything pierces the skin of whatever vegetable or fruit, then, you know, that plant item needs defense. So there's defenses all throughout these vegetables. That's why we try to use everything, and the stems especially. So I have a lot of, I don't even know what herb stems, probably parsley and whatever. Parsley and cilantro are the ones I use the most. So we got some purple onion skins, celery, parsley, cilantro, some mushroom stems. Alright, so put the lid on, let that cook a little more. I'm also going to add some vinegar to this. I have some apple cider vinegar, or you could add lemon, or whatever vinegar you have on hand. It's supposed to help to pull out the collagen from the bones. But if you think collagen is the answer to all your problems, think again, because it's a combination of a good diet 80% of the time, exercise at least 50% of the time if you can, just being active, not 50%, but just try to be active most days, and a combination of strength training and cardio. So it's not just one thing, it's a combination of things. But don't get overwhelmed. Small changes add up. Just take action in some way. So using your vegetable scraps to make wonderful soup stock, as opposed to having to worry about going and buying at the store and thinking that that's your answer, especially if you have any financial constraints. I'm always looking for ways to save money because I spend money on other things. So I want to make the most of my food out of respect for the animals and the plants and the energy that is put into growing those things, or the energy of the animals that gave their lives, and then the energy that I can put in from my own love to myself or whomever I share my food with. That's my philosophy, is putting good energy into everything you prepare. So let's let that cook a little more. All right, let's give it a stir. So because I put the vinegar in there, we got some liquid on the bottom, so it's going to help with the deglazing process because I can't really reach the bottom now. Also, there's the liquid from the vegetables that are defrosting, all the scraps. Look at, see all that color. So while I do some work at home, I'm going to be making soup stock, and then we'll finish, and I will make some lentil soup with this today. I've been craving curry lentil soup. So once all the vegetables are pretty much thawed, and it really doesn't have to be this way, but it makes it easier if they're already thawed, because I want to bring the liquid to a boil. I'm just going to add water to what I have cooking here. So I have my burner now set on high, and I've just got a bunch of water. Just pour it in, and as much as it will fit, and bring it to a boil. Okay, pretty good guess. All right, so put the lid on, bring it to a boil, and then we're going to stick it in the oven for 6 hours. Once the stock has come to a boil, is you let it boil for about 5 minutes. And then I'm going to stick it in the oven, but I just want you to see what we got going on here. Turn the heat off. So I decided this time I'm going to try 4 hours at 350, because I might be going somewhere and I don't want to be here all day, just in case. I would not leave my oven on and unattended. I would never recommend that. Kitchen fires, pretty sure are the biggest causes of fires overall in households, so let's not take a chance. Okay. So you can see the lovely stock we have going on here. Oh, it's really heavy. I'm going to put the lid on. I'm going to stick it back. I'm going to stick it in the oven for 4 hours at 350. And I'm going to eat, do some work, keep an eye on my stock, and then we'll make some lentil soup. Coconut curry lentil soup. Yummy. All right. I have a tiny kitchen, so no room. Okay. All right. Set the timer so I don't forget that it's in there for 4 hours at 350. I'm going to set my phone as well just so I don't forget. Okay. All right. We'll be back. Okay, so I ended up keeping my broth in the oven for 5 hours, but about 2 hours into it, I opened the oven door, pulled it out, and added some extra water because it had reduced, which is what I wanted to do, but I let it reduce for another 3 hours, and I haven't looked at it since. And I've been letting it cool for about an hour. So let's take a look. All right, so look at this beautiful color, nutrient-rich broth. And as I said, I'm going to save the bones for another project. But for now, I'm just going to strain this, and I am going to discard what is left. And hopefully it will decompose a lot easier now that it's been really broken down. And I sucked out every last nutrient I possibly could. Anyway, let's give it a pour. So I have a pourable bowl here, and as it fills up, I'm going to have to, so let me grab some containers to put the broth in. I'm probably going to make my soup in the morning because I'm kind of run out of energy for the day. So I've got some containers. Make sure you've got a big colander and a bowl underneath. I'm sure there was one time where I just started pulling it in the colander and started pouring broth down the drain, but only one time. Let's see how we're doing here. And I could strain it through like a finer sieve if I wanted to, but I'll probably leave the herbs in there that are gonna get through the colander. Okay, there we go. It smells really good. Let's give it a taste. It's so good. It really is. It has so much flavor to it. It's going to be amazing for my lentil soup. So now I'm going to stick it in the containers. And then I'll probably use all of it in my soup. I don't really want to freeze any, and then I'll drink the rest if there's any left over. Okay, there's one. So I don't even know how much I'm going to get out of it. There's two. And then I'm going to let it cool in the fridge with the lid off. And then after 4 hours, I'll put the lid on so it's cooled properly. Ideally, you want to cool everything in like a 3-inch at the most, but it's all right. Because it's not a really dense item. So. Okay. All right, there we go. Oops. Now, if you're going to keep this in your freezer, make sure you label and date it. Since I pretty much just make chicken stock, I always know, but you can indicate that it's chicken stock and not some other stock. My one friend makes multiple stocks, so indicate what kind it is. I'll probably drink the rest of that. Label and date it and use it. If it's in your freezer, you still probably have up to like 3 months, maybe 6, but say 3 months just to be safe. Okay, it's Elizabeth Brown, the Kitchen Vixen. You can call me SCrAP BRoTH out of things we would have thrown away otherwise. And using the bones for a future project. Stay tuned. Don't waste anything. Use what you have. Start where you are. No time you'll be a star. And always make biceps. Okay, bye. I wanted to make a note that If I had included chicken that maybe I had just cooked just once, I would probably pick out the chicken pieces from here and add them to whatever soup I was making, or actually probably put them on the side, because you have to be careful with animal products. You don't want to cook them too many times. There's way more risk for foodborne illness. But if you wanted to, if the chicken was relatively fresh, maybe cooked once, you put it aside, you could add it to your soup or whatever. You could pick it out of these scraps. Otherwise, I'm going to discard it because there's a mix of chickens and I don't know how many times each one of them has been cooked or recooked, so it's going to be discarded except for the bones. I'm at the end of the stock. I'm going to drink what's left, but there's going to be a lot of herbs down here that I probably don't want to drink. Got herbs that sunk to the bottom. So I'm going to use a fine sieve. That's a fine sieve to strain out, and you can use that for the rest of your broth. And then I can drink this more easily, so don't choke on the little herb pieces. Oh my God, it's so good. Okay. And I know there are people out there who'd be like, that's the secret to my skin, or that's the secret to my flat belly. And I say bullshit. It's not. I don't make stock all the time. It's consistency with activity and eating healthy. Consistency is the key, not one magic bullet broth or juice or anything like that. Okay. And not even good genes. I'm sorry. Nobody has like perfect genes. I come from a very varied family, but I have been consistent with my diet and exercise for most of my adult years, from age 16 on up. So that's the key. I'm making biceps and smiling and laughing.